Guys, this is Navinad. We've been grinding away at $5 and then okay, $1, then $2, then $5, then $10, and then finally we got up over $400 and started playing $20 heads up sit and go. So I'm gonna record this one and put it up for your viewing pleasures at on PokerTube and on my not so as of yet successful YouTube channel. So, without further ado, I'm just gonna murder people at NL20. Yeah, kind of. The reason I elected to lead instead of like check call the gut shot here with the overcard is when you look at the improvement cards that I'm gonna have, it's gonna be pretty difficult for me to get paid off. Generally speaking. So generally speaking, the more difficult it is to get paid off on your improvement cards, i.e. the less implied odds you're going to have, the more fold equity you should have. Because it's pretty obvious that there's a straight here that I could definitely have, and even if he has like a pair of fours or something, you probably ought to fold it, just given that it's going to be so hard for him to get it to showdown. So kind of as a rule of thumb, if you're gonna like be aggressive with some of your draws, and so you're gonna take aggressive lines with some of your draws and compliant like check call or check lines with some of your draws. I'm gonna say that the ones that offer the best implied odds, the ones that are sneakier, harder to see, will make better check call or compliant plays, and the ones that are more obvious and just out there in your face, more overt, are going to make the better aggressive plays. Like when you've got the ace of hearts and there's 3 hearts on the board, get aggressive with it. Because it is, I mean, it's really, first of all, it's going to be hard to get any implied value when the next heart comes off. And second, it's going to be difficult for your opponent to call without a heart, so, or 2. So yeah. That's just kind of the way I look at it. Same thing here, like 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be really hard for me to get value if an ace or a 6 rolls off. It should be. And for that reason, villain ought to be folding more often. Or kind of, I don't know, for that reason, but related to that reason. So all of my draws that I'd have here, like heart draws and whatnot, I would be barreling this card. I don't know if he understands that, but again, it's going to be hard to get value here. But that is why we semi-bluff aggressively. I've been kind of experimenting with limping ranges, open limping ranges, heads up, and even at like NL20 so far, I haven't really been stomped on for it. So I'm gonna keep doing it. I know I see it a lot, and honestly, I'm looking at it thinking, like, I don't know how easy this is to exploit. Yeah, that is a pretty difficult flop to have none of, and I think the guy checked so fast that it's unlikely that he's check folding. That's a real big online tell. I'm sure you've heard me talk about it before. When somebody rapid fire speed checks, they're almost always checking to call, and when they tank check, they're usually checking to fold. I have no equity there, getting tons and tons. If that flop comes out a billion times, I'm going to have better equity than what I had, like 999 million of those 1 billion times. So there's really no reason to get aggressive with no equity on a flop that it's, you're just going to, it's like if I'm going to be aggressive on that flop some of the time, but not all of the time, I may as well use the parts of my range that have equity for the times I'm going to get aggressive, and use the parts of my range that do not have equity to not get aggressive. I think the only hands we would be getting value from if we bet here would be draws, and because draws have so much equity against just a pair of 8s, it's not much of a value bet even against them. And if I get check raised, I'm going to have to dump it, and I'll be folding the best hand some of the time. That I think it makes sense to just go ahead and check back, try to bluff catch with this and get it closer to showdown. Yeah, and this is probably a spot that he was in where he just had like two random cards that were not clubs, not diamonds, not broadways, no pair, and he just thought like, I just give up, which makes sense. You there, homie? Come on, that's a big moment for me. I just moved up to 20-0. Yeah, I think most of the time when somebody opens a limping range mid-game, they're not doing it with aces. They're doing it with some weak. They like have a hand. This is the thought process I think goes into it, just from like introverted self-reflection and watching the hands that end up being going to showdown that are played that way. I think the thought process goes like this. Okay, I'm on the button. I have a hand like 2-3 suited, 3-2 suited, and I really would like to limp this, but I'm afraid that if I do, my opponent's going to get aggressive and raise and steal the pot from me, forcing me to fold my equity. And then the thought process is, okay, yeah, but if he starts doing that, I can add like aces in there and I can trap him. Fine, that's fine. Except they never have that thought when they first have pocket aces. They don't look at it and say, at some point in the game I'm going to see some kind of hand that I'm going to want to open limp, and it's going to be kind of janky, so I should limp here with these aces to protect that open limping range. So at least the first open limp of a match, especially if it's like midway through a match, when somebody just randomly starts opening a limping range, it's never the big part of their range. I mean, they may have every intention of having a balanced range. They may even end up with a super balanced, unexploitable range, but just that very first open limp is almost never a big hand. I mean, it may well be something that can limp and call, but it's not likely to be something that's going to like limp shove or limp raise, or they're not going to get cute and trappy the first time, usually. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen them do that. Like, just out of nowhere, they've been open raising most of their buttons, but then they just decide to limp, and then get the showdown with like pocket aces. Just never. I mean, why would they? Just think of it from your perspective, or their perspective. If you're a villain and you've been open raising most of your buttons, and then you pick up aces, why would you all want to say, "I'm gonna limp"? I know I've been raising, and I have perfect cover here. You wouldn't, but you might try it with like some suited connectors or some like really weak janky hand that you just like a 5-2 offsuit, and you're like, I'm getting 3-1. So yeah, that's my rationale. That's what I think the rationale is. I've got plenty of equity, but I don't think this is a particularly good card to barrel. I mean, it could get him to fold a 2. I don't know, because is he really going to expect me to bet a 5? I think this is just a total brick, and I just need to check back and hope to bank a queen on the river. I think he's got like a 2, a 5, something like that a lot of the time, so I'm going to bet small and hope to get looked up by like a deuce or a 9 or a 5. Yeah, his range is so weak there. I think most of the time he's just going to fold, but may as well try for the little bitty offer they can't refuse type value bet. I'm going to give you $1 billion to 1 to call with your ace high or whatever. I feel a 3-bet coming on. It's one of those psychic like moments where you just know you're about to get it. I think I'm going to get it. And I feel like maybe I just ran into it. Yeah, I knew it. I'm going to fold. I know it's super exploitable. But I mean, yeah, when the psychic vibes are there, you have to listen. I mean, I'm not claiming that I'm like Miss Cleo, but I mean, when the vibes are there, they're there. No, really. I mean, I'm sure that it's like a some sort of subconscious timing, just the game flow type. I know. I mean, probably I'm just really psychic. You don't believe that? I knew you wouldn't believe that because I am psychic. So, alright, again, here's a spot where I think a lot of people would just sort of mindlessly value bet because, oh, they can get value from draws, they can get value from a pair of threes, but I actually think this is better to check back. I mean, I don't mind protecting my hand and folding out my opponent's at least 3, maybe 6 outs. But if we're ever going to try to get a hand to showdown, I think this should be the type of hand that we try to get to showdown. That's a shitty card, but we didn't know it was going to be there because we're only semi-psychic. So I think that if we bet our 6s on this flop, we're really just turning them into a bluff, and we should just try to get these to showdown. I can't value bet it, and even if I bet it against a draw, chances are a hand like 5-6 or any 2 spades is going to check raise me enough of the time in which case I'm just going to have to fold, which actually is not an argument at all in favor of value betting 6s against a draw if you... Geez, what a bad run out. Super... Okay, so my first thought is just emotionally I'm super happy to just take this to showdown, but my second thought is this guy has got to have like a 3 or a 7, right? Probably still more 7s than 3s, right? And they're not going to fold, so yeah. So I think there's a spot where had we... I'm really surprised he didn't bet that king. I think he should have bet that king. But if he had decided to... If we had c-bet the flop and he had check raised, which I think he would have with a draw, like a full draw like that, often enough that it would have been pretty disgusting. We would have had to fold it. Or if he check raised and created a big pot, then he might have been more inclined to barrel the king, depending on his personality. But so that's a pot that we got our 6s to showdown and won, where we very easily could have bet and lost. So don't believe the hype, kids. It's not always best to be aggressive. You have to constantly be thinking, and it's going to be a struggle. And the struggle is real. Yeah, we're just going to bomb here because he chalked back, and we picked up some equity. And it's again going to be one of those spots it's hard to get value out of. And when we do improve, so that it improves, or to improve our fold equity. If you've got bad implied odds, you've usually got better fold equity. Now that is not to say if you have reverse implied odds, just if you have, like, your implied odds aren't good because your draw is so obvious if it gets there, yeah, I think you're, like I said, that's where your fold equity ought to be best. Not best, just, what I mean. Now, I would not have been incredibly surprised to see a limp raise there, but I would have been a little surprised. Because it had been a while. It's not like we'd had this, like, historic beef. This is a dry flop, so it is going to be hard for me to get value very often, because, like, what is he really calling me with? Like, ace highs? Well, I've got 2 of the aces. And pocket pairs. But, I mean, he should have some kings. He should have some pairs, and he should know that I'm going to be continuation betting that flop with all of my air. So I think, c-betting there. Although probably more optional in my opinion than in most people's opinions, I think it was still fine. Yeah, I think we still have min-raising stacks, but just barely. He's got 16... big blinds, and this is another one of those, if villain has a draw and I'm trying to extract value from it, I'm probably not going to do a good job because I'm going to bet and he's going to jam, and that's going to suck. So we will try to get our 6s one step closer to showdown. And he should be betting here like all the time, because I never have a flush, right? Never. I never have a straight, ever. So he should just bet and he should just take it, and there's really nothing I can do about it. Against a reasonable player, I did sort of turn my range face up, but that's still not a huge problem, except when that draw comes in. And, on balance, I think it still makes better sense to not turn showdown value into a bluff when you think you're extracting values from just draws, when you don't have any real reason to believe that the villain's just going to check and call with his draws. I don't think we are quite deep enough to flat 7-5 offsuit, and I don't think it's a good idea to light 3-bet against this guy with these stack sizes, because it would have been like, it would have basically had to have been a shove. At this stack depth, I don't think I'm going to have a ton of flats versus his min raises. But Jack 8 offsuit is going to be in my flatting range if ever I have one. I'm going to go ahead and float this. Expecting to improve on some turns and get aggressive. And sometimes just for him to just give up. So if he calls, it's a bad line. I mean that my line was bad. His line was good. Now this is a spot where I think I can value bet, even though I'm value betting against some draws, because I think he's less likely to get aggressive on a paired board with his draws, more likely to take a compliant line, and like check call his draws. And also there's just so many more combos I can get value with, like any pocket pair, because I think any of his 10s plus would have 3-bet me pre-flop. Any ace-x he has left over after you discount his calling range, I mean his 3-betting range. Yeah. Gut shots. He's got a lot of stuff that can call that I want to call. And I don't think he's going to just get spewy and spazzy quite as often. Damn it. It's a big bet. Check calls that flop. Overbet leads the river. I don't believe his story. Damn it. I blocked some of the combos he'd be bluffing with. Damn. I instantly regret limping. Yeah. Shit. He knows I'm not doing that with any huge hand, so if he's a good thinking player, he ought to know that if he just shoves there, I can so rarely ever call him. And King Queen doesn't really induce well. But I'm not folding, so maybe I should have just open shoved it. Damn. Gross. Jeez, oh Pete. That's some run bet, kids. Oh wow. They call me Suck Out McNasty. Ding, 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 we win. Alright, so I don't want to play this guy again because I feel like he was pretty good. So let's lock up the W on the very first time that we took our run it up from nothing bankroll into the $20 heads up sit and go arena. Yeah. Till next time, guys. Good quote, LUCK, exclamation point, end quote.